about this work to actually prostitute your children. Then, hello and welcome to the Well Child Show. Pedophilia is one of the worst forms of social interaction. Worse still is when children are sold into slavery for the purposes of sexual gratification. It's another edition of the Well Child Show, brought to you by Global Child Health and Safety Initiative. And my name is Kemak Onyenaucheya, and I welcome you. Today on the show, we'll be looking at the topic child sexual slavery. We're going to be looking at the effects of this scourge and preventive measures that parents and families can put in place to ensure that our precious children are not brought under the weight of sexual slavery. I have resource persons with me in the studio today, but let's take a very quick breather and I'll see you on the other side. Please stay with us. You're welcome back. It's still the Well Child Show, brought to you by Global Child Health and Safety Initiative, and my name as always is Kemak Onyenaucheya. Like I said earlier, today on the show we're looking at child sexual slavery, and I have a resource person with me in the studio who has first-hand experience working with individuals that have gone through this experience and are fortunate enough to tell their stories of horror. Please welcome with me Ruth Okoinron. She is a counselor and a migration expert with the Migrant Project. You're welcome to the program, Ruth.
Thank you, Kemak.
Yeah, issues like this really bore holes in my heart. And I know before the show commenced, you were telling me a particular story about a young girl that you met that was fortunate enough to escape the horrors of sexual slavery. Can you tell us that story once again?
Okay, so in the course of the work that we do on the Migrant Project, we come across people who are vulnerable and people who have been trafficked and those who have embarked on irregular migration. And some of them are fortunate enough to live to tell their stories. So we have those who have embarked and they are back. We call them returnees. So in the course of our engagement, community engagement, I came across a young girl who was trafficked, and she ended up as a sex slave for a very long time until she was fortunate enough to pay off the debts. Then she found her way back to Nigeria. It was very horrific, very
I'm trying to wrap my brain around this concept. Now, pedophilia, as we know, which is like the sexual interaction between an adult and a child, is as bad as it gets.
Exactly.
Now, how much more when a child is put through the horror of having to serve the unwholesome sexual appetite of adults. It's crazy. Now, can you tell us a bit based on your experience? Because I really don't want to believe that a normal parent or guardian would take their child and give out for the primary aim of the child becoming a sex slave. Can you tell us, based on your experience, what are some of the indices that result in children, you know, being sold into sex slavery?
Yeah, one of them, of course, obviously, is poverty. We know the economic situation in the country. So some of those people are from disadvantaged communities. They are vulnerable to those things, and people, these traffickers, they approach them. And the funny part is that, or the painful part is that these are people who are trusted people. By trusted, I mean family members, friends. It will even shock you to find out that even those from the religious settings are also part of this trend. So poverty is one indices. When a parent is trying to survive and this trafficker walk up to them and say, you know what, your child is just here languishing, wasting his or her time here. Let me take this child abroad, and before you know, in 2 or 3, I'm saying yes, in months, you will start reaping the benefits of this child being abroad. But they don't tell them the true picture. They don't tell them the true stories. They hide those facts from them. And of course, the parents will gladly, because who doesn't want to escape the clutches of poverty? So poverty is one of it, and then ignorance is another indices.
Right.
Yeah, in the sense that these parents are not well informed to know that this sounds too good to be true.
Yeah.
How do you take my child who is still very young out of the country? What sort of job, or how is he or she going to earn? And then turn situation around in my family. So ignorance is also part of faith.
Yeah, there's a lot. Like, I realized that the last time I was in Houston, I saw lots of young Nigerians doing nothing. I think a lot of education has to go into empowering our people.
Exactly.
With the knowledge and information that life outside this country is not an Eldorado of sorts.
As it seems, or as they may have sold to them. So education is an, ignorance is an indices. So like we say, we can tackle that with education. We just have to keep talking about this thing and keep talking about this, and like what we're doing here now.
Now, sadly, and I realized that about 98% of traffickers, from your research, are known in one form or the other to the families. It's what gives. How can parents, are there, signs that parents can look out for to know that maybe someone offering your child a better future outside the country is actually planning to engage that child in sexual slavery?
So one of the things is, of course, they feed them with information that are too good to be true. So parents need to learn to question these things, ask questions, don't be scared. We tell people, learn to question things. When we engage, even the younger ones, funnily, engaging the youths these days has been a bit helpful because it sinks into their subconscious that I need to ask questions. Just yesterday we were somewhere engaging the youth on irregular migration, sex slavery and all of the connection and all of that. And we told them, learn to ask questions so that when mommy or daddy comes to you and say, XYZ, you are going this route, or you are going outside to join your mate, or immediately after you finish secondary school, we'll send you abroad. Ask questions. What am I going there to do, mommy or daddy? What am I going there to do? Is it for education? And these are some of the signs. When these traffickers come, you find out that their promises are too good to be true, and also they withhold information. Like you don't have a clear-cut picture, understanding of what that child should be doing. So at the end of the day, they push the children outside and they end up in domestic servitude, forced labor, and of course sexual slavery and sexual exploit and all of that. So basically that's just what it is.
Now I still find it so difficult to wrap my brain around the consciousness that a living, breathing human being can subject a child to sexual slavery. Now, in your field of work, what are some of the devastating effects that you have observed in some of the children or young adults who have been rescued and are undergoing counseling by your organization, the Migrant Project?
Okay, so some of it is trauma. So trauma, both short and prolonged trauma, is one of the things you will notice because it's horrible, it's horrific.
Yes.
The journey itself, the experiences, these are not what you wish on any child to go through such. So trauma is one thing you have to do with. So you find out that this child, they've messed up with this child, with the childhood, and this is a child that should mature into being an adult and make decisions and be part of those who make certain policies in the country and all of that. But even this child is not sane enough. Mentally, the child is not mentally balanced to even, tread through that path because that child has been, the life has been cut short, the childhood has been truncated. The child doesn't even know how it is or what it was to be a child. Do you understand? So that's one of the issues, trauma, and this is something that we see all the time. So a child that has gone through some of this, you need to understand that you have to come from a place of empathy. That's it. You have to also, we have people who are trained, counselors on this job who know how to reach out to these children and to connect with them and let them understand that, hey, this may have happened to you, but there's still life, after that. And this child that one has sent on this journey, in the course of embarking on this journey, of course, and stuff like this, the education is truncated. How does that child develop in every ramification, both the physical, the mental, psychological, and all of that, to become a well-formed adult? So trauma is one of the things that we see when you connect with them, and then you know how to go about it and let them understand that, you know what, this wasn't your fault. Because most times they do not make these decisions for themselves. These decisions were forced on them by their parents and all of that, and guidance.
And a lot of times, the backdrop of all this is plans to migrate irregularly.
Yes, please.
So what advice do you have for parents looking at the concept of irregular migration? First of all, let me ask, is it essentially a wrong ambition to want to live outside the country?
No, of course. Of course it's not. It's not. You can't tell an individual not to migrate. We don't say, oh, you don't have to leave the country. It is a desire. Many of us desire a whole lot of good things. But our concern is, how do you go through this? You want to achieve this, but what are the steps that you are going to take to get to your final destination and all of that? So for what we preach is that you want to go abroad, you want to leave the country for good reasons. Sometimes, some could be education, some because of economic factors and all of that, health and environment, cultural reasons and all of that. Well, good. But irregular migration is deadly.
That's where
it's
the
risky.
problem lies.
So that's where the problem lies. In the bid of wanting to leave, desperation comes in. How do I go about it? The next step is, let me go through this route. For them, they believe it's cheaper. You understand, it's cheaper, I'll get there and all of that. But a whole lot lies on that journey. So many a times, some people do not even get to their destination. So the point is, do not be forced or do not be pushed out of desperation. You don't like your current situation, you want to get out, it is better out there and all of that. You want to do all of those things, but do not allow desperation to make those decisions for you. So you have to
especially when there are children
when there are
involved.
children involved, and that's the sad part. The sad part is that sometimes you could see a parent or two embarking on this journey with a child in tow, and it's very devastating, because even for the parents, is not guaranteed, the safety is not guaranteed. Then going on that journey with a child is very depressing. It is.
Wow. This topic gives me so much heartache and so much almost physical pain. We have a resource that we'll look at right now, and when we return, the Well Child Show continues. Please stay with us.
We aren't allowed to show their faces, but the stories they tell of the cruelty they've gone through are terrible to hear. This 18-year-old was convinced to leave Nigeria for a fake job in Mali, and then told to pay off a fictitious debt to the female trafficker through forced prostitution. She ended up doing the same thing in Libya before escaping over the sea. It took 2 years from her.
This is the way they deceive girls, that you are going to get a work and look at your family. They are suffering and you cannot continue your education. Are you going to stay here? Just go and work this restaurant work that I'm doing. Then you will help your family. That's what he said to me.
It becomes yet more complex when you hear other stories. This 16-year-old went through the same in Libya and was then told to travel by boat to Italy with a phone number in her pocket. The gang had people both sides of the Mediterranean. They gave you a phone number and said, when you come to Italy, you must phone this number.
Yes.
That's what they said.
Yes.
And do you know who these people were?
No.
There are other stories here. Girls whose mothers made them go to Europe so they wouldn't be victims of genital mutilation by men from their village. But mostly it comes back to sex. The staff here say there are girls from certain African countries who will all have been trafficked before they get here. What's clear is that there are gangs of people operating a transcontinental child prostitution operation under cover of the migration crisis. Al Jazeera has previously seen the evidence of African children acting as prostitutes on the Italian mainland. Last year it was reported some 5,000 children, boys as well as girls, had simply vanished in Italy. The United Nations says 5,000 unaccompanied children crossed the Mediterranean in the first 4 months of this year. Faced with those numbers, Italy has enacted a new law offering refugee children the same rights as Italian ones, meaning reception centres can educate and look after them. The hope is it will break the link with the traffickers.
Certainly, if the system of protection and reception for the children is better run, more intensive and faster, it will have an impact.
The writing on the wall tells a story of broken children, painstakingly being put back together by people who can offer trust rather than betrayal. It seems to have taken time for Italy to understand how cynical criminal gangs can be. But now, The girls have told them. Lawrence Lee, Al Jazeera, in Sicily.
Welcome back. You're still watching the Well Child Show, brought to you by Global Child Health and Safety Initiative. My name is Kemak Onyenaucheya, and I'm glad you're here with us. Joining me at this moment is Mr. Niyi Salami. He's a migration expert and counselor with the Migrant Project. Niyi, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Kemak.
Now, we've been looking at this horrible and horrifying trend on child sexual slavery. And based on the work that you do at the Migrant Project, there's a huge link between irregular migration and child sexual slavery. Can you draw the line so that our viewers and parents can know in succinct terms how going on journeys of irregular migration could end up, enforcing their children into sexual slavery?
Thank you, Kemak. You see, in this part of the world, Nigeria specifically, there's so much about poverty, about people not being able to feed. So traffickers, they pay attention to families that are struggling. So they will now bring them offer that, look, let me take your child abroad. You can do something there. So some of them, out of desperation, lags, and then maybe the trafficker is going to give them a few, maybe just $100, which is big. So they let go their child. But the real intention of the trafficker is not known to them. The right questions they should ask from the trafficker, they do not ask the right question. Some of the times, sometimes some of these traffickers, they are people well known to us, old uncles, old aunties, based in Qatar, based in Oman, based in Lebanon, based in UK. They are based, so there is kind of a picture.
So there's some level of trust.
There's some level of trust. But they really don't ask the question, how is the child being taken to abroad? Because if they are going to the right embassy, if they are going to the embassy through visa or something, they will ask question. They will need letters from the parents.
Yes.
They will need the passport page of the parents. They will need a consent letter. Why is this man who is not related to this child? So the trafficker knows that. So because he knows that, they now take them through irregular routes. So as they take them through irregular routes, they are now able to achieve their purpose, whether there is a demand from another country, pedophiles, only children to prey on. So he exchanges that child. Do you get it?
Yeah.
For his own benefits.
Right. Okay, now let's look at the numbers. Do we have statistics on the number of children that are trafficked irregularly,
Yeah, statistics varies from the sources coming from.
Okay.
But if we rely with ILO, International Labour Organization, I think presently they say about 1.2 million children are trafficked annually. That figure does not include only Nigeria, that's they say annually. Indians, Pakistan, it's a global something. And so if you look at that number annually, that is that there are some people whose business is even built.
Trafficking children.
Trafficking children.
What can we do? Now, trickling down to the baseline cause of this melee, looking at the economic situation of families. Now, this is not to say, and I really do not buy into the argument that we can use poverty as a crutch or as a reason to just give away children on irregular migration. But that's another topic for another day. What do you think, in your experience as a migration expert, and of course this is to help us come up with workable solutions, what role or what steps can governments, non-profit organizations, civil society organizations, families and individuals, in your experience and with your expertise, what specific steps can we take to stem this tide? Because 1.2 million children trafficked annually. It's staggering.
It's staggering, yeah. The approaches, many things we can take. Let us take the from the NGOs and civil societies. The best they can do is to create awareness, advocacy, campaign, that the people know the dangers they are putting their child into. Then from the government side, you see, when adoption is not properly done, you know, some people just go to a hospital, go to parents in the village, and my child is something, they want to adopt a child. You don't really know their real intention.
Right.
And we read every day in the newspaper that there are baby factories where people are pregnant, they give birth to a child, somebody will come and buy the child.
And you know, to my great shock, I realized that some of those baby factories actually reproduce these children for the sole aim of selling them. Of selling them,
yes. They groom them 2, 3, 6 years. Look at the ones that were recruited in school in Kano. Some of them were already 7 years, 6 years. That Mercy something hospital in Kano. When they brought up, some of them were already 7 years, 6 years, something like that. You know, the monitoring. And when they went to the file in Kano, they saw that the man was not registered with the Ministry of Women and the Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Welfare. The hospital was not registered with them. He was just doing his own thing. So effective monitoring, employing social workers to go around these adopting centers, these agents, you know, they are trying a lot. So these are the places where traffickers sometimes get their do their activities.
Wow. Now, are there any current trends? Because, you know, it seems like the more we try to fight evil in society, the more creative and innovative perpetrators of evil become.
Yes.
Now, for purposes of enlightenment and education, are there any current trends adopted by some of these traffickers in carrying out their evil plans?
Yes. In our society in Nigeria here, one, you see people who have gone abroad and back. You don't even know their lifestyle. You don't know whether they are gay or they just come back and hand over their child to them. They bring to forge paper, a lot of things to take the child along. Sometimes there are some people who say they have HIV, and then when they sleep with the virgin, they will get, you know, they get cured. They get cured. Yes.
You know, what's it called now? Superstitious
belief. So they go around. You understand me? That sometimes they say they want a house girl, 6 years old. I'm in Lagos. You know, it's difficult for me. Let your child. But the child is abused. The child cannot talk. The only sign you see is that when the child sees a man, an adult coming, the child will just run away.
So there are several symptoms.
There are various symptoms. You can look for your children. Before you release out your child to a cousin, uncle, brother, stranger, neighbor, find out what do they do. What do they do? Find out from people who know them. So it's not just that December, Christmas, they come say, mommy, let me help you. Let me take your daughter to US. Let me take your daughter to UK. They are just sweet promises. You don't know their lifestyle. You don't really know what they do.
And of course, some of these children don't live to tell the stories.
They don't live to tell the stories. Even by the time they say they are coming back, they just maybe find something against them, and trains in Middle East countries, and they say they stole something. When they recruit them from Nigeria, they go there as domestic staff. When they want to run away, they just lie against them that they stole something. So they face trial, they lock them up. So somebody has been locked up. How can he or she tell her stories?
Wow, this is a very sad, you know, occurrence, and everyone needs to bundle together to arrest this Malay. Now, let's look at this from the angle of family planning.
Okay.
Right? Economic situation is a major factor why parents give out their children to some unwholesome practices. Would you say that family planning and parents having the number of children they can conveniently take care of, does it have an effect, an impact on this? If so, can you explain briefly?
Yes, family planning will actually do a lot on the number of children a couple can produce and actually take care of. But in a multi-religious society like ours, There was a time, long time ago, I don't know, I think Pope Francis has been trying to do something about it, where Catholics are not allowed to use condom. There are some other religious organizations also who don't allow their members to use condom. So many, and there's in the north or something like that, when all those family planning something, they view it in different lights. That you have to get an emir, you have to get a knowledgeable person, you have to get a malam to now educate the society that this family planning methods is not about religion. They are not trying to harm you. They are not trying to get information from you. They just want to help you, that you can take care of the number of children you have. So religion plays a role, serious role in family planning. The government has been trying awareness campaign, companies producing condoms. They've been trying other organizations like Society for Family Health. They've been doing a lot of campaigns. But religious organizations too have to know some of the things they are teaching the people, that whatever God gives you, it's God that gives children. Just like rats. You know, those kind of teachings, they have to moderate them. They have to say it's God that gives children. So if you can produce 25, whether you have
right, but of course the consequence of having the number of children
is what we're not talking about, child trafficking, street kids. Wow. So religious organizations have a major role to play because people believe in their leader more than they even believe leaders, more than they believe in the governor or the president. There's something that the president will say. If their pastor says otherwise, they believe their pastor more than they believe the president. There's something the Minister of Health will say about safety, about this and this.
If an imam says,
if an imam says that there's HIV, then you go and drink salt. They would not listen to the minister, they would listen to their imam or pastor. So religious bodies really have a lot to do about child trafficking, family planning, parents being able to have the number of children they can take care of according to their income, at their present income. That when I pay my rent, transport, myself and my wife, what remains?
Right.
Can this amount pay even for nursery education or primary education? You have to consider that. So if you know that your present economic condition cannot take care of the number of children you are producing, it's better you quickly embark on family planning.
Wow.
Maybe when your condition improves, you can now maybe add another child.
Wow.
But if things are tough for you presently, your husband is out of work or the wife is out of work, it's only one of them that's bringing income, then you should think of family planning to control the number of children you are going to have now that both of you are not working or one of you is not working.
Wow. Thank you so much, Nee, for coming on the show today.
Thank you very much.
And to my viewers, it's a holistic effort that everyone has to come together and stem this tide of child sexual abuse and child sexual trafficking. Thank you for being a part of the show today. And like I'll always say, I need you to remember, child health and safety is everyone's business. Every child around you is your child, and it's your duty to enforce the health, the safety, and the well-being of the children. Remember, parents, all that glitters is simply not gold. The health, the safety, and the well-being of your children come first. I'd like to use this opportunity to call on well-intentioned organizations and individuals partner with us on the Well Child Show as we bring information on the health, safety, and wellness of children. The conversation continues across our social media platforms. You can hook up with us on Instagram at the Well Child Show and Global Child Health, or to watch this and previous editions of the show, check us out on YouTube at Well Child TV. Thank you so much for being a part of the show today. I'll be back same time next week with another interesting and educating edition of the Well Child Show. Until then, be good and God bless you.